I have in my possession a secret map by the planners of the New World Order.
Because the global order is changing again.
A new world order.
An attack on Syria would be an attack on the entire United Nations system, says Bolivia's UN envoy, and since this article was published, as you can see, Trump has ordered military strikes on Syria. The United Nations is the great horn of the he-goat written of in Daniel chapter 8, in my opinion, and it's also the one who sends a raiser of taxes, the global carbon tax written of in Daniel chapter 11 verse 20. Before the New World Order emerges at the woe of the fifth trumpet, the great horn of the he-goat must first be broken, and when we see an article like this, we need to pay attention to it. An attack on Syria would be an attack on the entire UN system. The threat by the United States to use force in Syria undermines international law and the entire United Nations system. By threatening to act against Damascus with or without the UN's blessing, Washington is putting itself above all other nations, flaunting international law, the UN Charter, and the UN system as a whole. The problem is that the US believes and it acts as if it's above any law. They believe they have their own rules, and it's not the case, said the Bolivian ambassador to the United Nations. This follows Monday's threat by U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, that Washington might go to war in Syria alone if it can't secure approval in the United Nations due to what she called obstructionism from Russia. Either way, the United States will respond, Haley said, and this time in Syria you have the United Kingdom involved. Last time in 2013, remember when the warships of Russia and China were all in the Mediterranean? The UK didn't get involved, but now they are getting involved because of the alleged poisoning by the Russians of the MI6 agent. That makes about as much sense for the Russians to use poison with a made in Russia tag on it to poison an MI6 double agent as Assad on the verge of winning the war in Syria, the civil war, using chemical weapons on his own people. It doesn't make sense, but there's no good guy here. These are all puppets in the construction of the one world system, the one world political system that will emerge at the woe of the fifth trumpet. Whenever Satan and his angels are cast from heaven to earth, then the one world political system emerges, and not until then. We're still in the wars and rumors of war stage of all this, and the great horn of the he-goat, which I believe is the United Nations, must first be broken. Daniel chapter 11 verses 5 through 15 go through the first two world wars and on up to what's going on in Syria today. We just talked about this, so I won't go over it again, but I believe it's fairly obvious that what's going on in Syria right now is written of in Daniel chapter 11 verses 13 through 15, with the king of the north being the Russian Federation and the king of the south being the United States. There you see the robbers of thy people in verse 14. That's obviously the Kenites, the sons of Cain, who claim to be of Judah but are actually the literal children of the devil. And E.W. Bullinger notes in the Companion Bible that establish the vision means to help fulfill prophecy by taking the side of Syria. Going back to this outline now, after having covered the first three kings of the south, Ephraim, which is the British Commonwealth, the UK, Judah, which is Germany in the Second World War, and Manasseh, which is the United States in the current conflict in Syria between the United States and Russia, really, the king of the south and the king of the north. The first three kings of the north, Edom, which means red, Tsarist Russia, Soviet Russia, and the Russian Federation. The current king of the north, in my opinion. The fourth king of the north is the bear of Daniel chapter 7, which is also the confederacy written of in Ezekiel chapter 38. Russia being the leader, Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tobal. So when you go to verses 16 through 19, first you had the League of Nations after the First World War. Then after the Second World War, you had the United Nations, which I believe is the great horn of the he-goat in Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. First it has to be broken, and for it will come up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. The four great beasts of Daniel chapter 7, the four winds of heaven, always means the 5-month-long hour of temptation. So how far away is the 5-month-long hour of temptation from happening? Well, we don't know. We're supposed to watch, as Christ said in the last verse of Mark chapter 13. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, be ye not troubled, for the end is not yet. It will happen whenever Satan and his angels are cast from heaven to earth at the woe of the fifth trumpet. Then the one world political system, the New World Order as it's called, will emerge as it's written in Revelation chapter 13, and then it receives a deadly wound, after which Satan appears as Antichrist at the woe of the sixth trumpet, and that's covered in verses 31 through 45. Check it out in your companion Bible if you have one. This marks the midst of the week, Bullinger says there, Daniel chapter 11, verse 31. So what was going on in verses 21 through 30? The first half hour, the first 2.5 months of the hour of temptation. The fifth vial has to be poured out upon the seat of the beast, and who gave the first beast, the political beast, the New World Order, his power and his seat and great authority? It was the dragon, who is Satan, after he's cast from heaven unto the earth. He has to be here to make a covenant with many for 1 week, which was a week of years, Daniel's 70th week as it's called, but it's been shortened as promised by Christ in Mark 13. Those days have been shortened, the days of Daniel's 70th week, 7 days being years. Now it's been shortened to 5 months. The woe of the fifth trumpet is what begins Daniel's 70th week, which is now a 5-month period. After the deadly wound to the political system, which doesn't exist yet, it won't come into being until the woe of the fifth trumpet, after the great horn of the he-goat is broken. So there you have it. That's where we're at, basically. Download the PDF, the Daniel 11 Hypothesis, for free. I'll leave the link in the description, or you can go to biblicalresearchlabs.com, go to the search engine there, and type in the Daniel 11 Hypothesis, and there you'll have it. Free PDF. All you have to do is read it. And as Christ said in the last verse of Mark chapter 13, watch.
Let me warn you,
A new world order.
and let me warn the nation.
A new world order.
Let me warn you,
A new world order.